Be me. Name is Victoria. 36. Department director at a mid-sized advertising agency. Worked my way up over 12 years from junior copywriter to leadership. Manage creative and account services, about 40 people total. Split is roughly 25 men and 15 women across both teams. Always been passionate about workplace equality and lifting women up. Spent years reading about feminist leadership and dismantling patriarchy. Finally got promoted to director level 6 months ago. Now I have real authority to implement the changes I've dreamed about. My boss Michael is the VP, he's 52, very hands-off management style. Told me when I got promoted that he trusts my vision. That I should run my department however I think is best. I took that as permission to really transform our culture. Spent my first month observing all the problematic dynamics. Men dominating client presentations while women do background work. Guys taking credit for ideas that women on the team developed. Male voices getting heard immediately while women get interrupted. Classic patriarchal workplace behavior that needed disrupting. I developed what I called the collaborative excellence framework. Presented it to Michael first to get his sign-off. He barely looked at it, just said, "Sounds good, Victoria. You know what the team needs better than I do." That was all the approval I needed. Called an all-department meeting to announce the new framework. Everyone gathered in our main conference room. I had slides prepared, professional presentation set up. Stood at the front feeling powerful and purposeful. This was my moment to create real systemic change. Started by talking about our commitment to inclusive excellence. How we're going to lead the industry in equitable practices. Then I unveiled the collaborative excellence framework. Guideline 1. All client presentations must have equal gender representation. If the client team is 60% men, we match that ratio. Guideline 2. Men must document their idea sources. Any pitch or concept requires attribution to show whose input was used. Guideline 3. In internal meetings, men will speak second, after women have had the opportunity to share their perspectives. Guideline 4. Men must complete bias awareness check-ins. Weekly one-on-one meetings with me to discuss their growth. Guideline 5. Promotion nominations require my explicit approval to ensure we're not perpetuating old patterns. I looked around the room expecting to see the women looking grateful. Instead, I saw a lot of uncertain faces across all genders. One of my account directors, James, raised his hand. How will the equal representation rule work on the Miller account? They specifically requested our top strategist, who's male. We'll find a qualified woman to co-present, I said. Even if she hasn't worked on that account, he asked. This is about optics and equity, not just individual expertise. James sat back looking uncomfortable, but didn't argue further. Another senior creative, Marcus, asked about the attribution requirement. Do we need to document every conversation that influences our work? Yes, I said firmly. Transparency is crucial. We need to know whose intellectual labor is being used. My art director, Rachel, one of the women, looked confused. Victoria, most creative work is collaborative. Ideas build on each other. It's hard to say who originated what. Then we'll do our best to approximate, I told her. Better to overdocument than to let contributions go unrecognized. Meeting ended, and I felt good about setting clear expectations. Sent a follow-up email with a full framework document. Subject line was Building the Agency of the Future. First week under the new framework was adjustment heavy. The weekly bias check-in started immediately. I scheduled 30 minutes with each male employee every week. First up was James, my senior account director. He came in and sat down looking wary. I started with my planned questions. What biases have you noticed in yourself this week? He paused. I'm not sure, nothing specific. James, we all have biases. It's about recognizing them. I guess maybe I assumed Mark would be better at data analysis. Because he's been here longer, is that what you mean? No. Why did you assume Mark would be better? Because James hesitated. He has more experience with analytics. But is that a fact or an assumption? I pushed. It's a fact. Mark has 5 years more experience in that area. We went in circles like this for 30 minutes. Every answer he gave I reframed as potential bias. By the end, James looked exhausted. This continued with each guy I met with. Same circular conversations where everything became about bias, even when they gave factual reasoning for their decisions. Meanwhile, the attribution documentation was creating chaos. Every creative brief now required a paper trail, showing which conversations influenced which ideas. My copywriter Tom submitted a concept with a 3-page attribution document, listing every brainstorm session, casual conversation, and email that had any connection to the final idea. It was thorough, but completely impractical. Other creatives started doing the same thing. Massive documentation for every piece of work. Hours spent writing attribution reports instead of creating. The equal representation guideline hit a wall immediately. We had a pitch for a major tech client. They wanted our best team, regardless of composition. I assigned 3 people, carefully balanced by gender. 1 woman who was perfect for it, Sarah. 1 man who was perfect for it, David. And 1 woman who was less experienced, Jennifer. I included Jennifer to hit the gender ratio. Sarah came to my office looking stressed. Victoria, Jennifer's great, but she's not ready for this pitch. She needs to be on the team for equity reasons. But we're setting her up to struggle. She'll rise to the challenge, I said. This is about opportunity. Pitch day came, and it went poorly. Sarah and David were excellent as expected. Jennifer was nervous, stumbled through her section. Client asked technical questions she couldn't answer. We didn't win the account. Sarah came to my office afterward, looking upset. We should have won that, she said. If we'd put Marcus on instead of Jennifer, we would have. We can't always prioritize winning over equity. That's literally our job, Victoria, to win clients. I felt defensive, but didn't back down. Week 3, and I started noticing something strange. The guys were following the framework obsessively. Not just following it, documenting that they were following it. James sent me an email after every meeting, detailing who spoke first, who spoke second, timestamps, proving he let women speak before contributing. Tom started CCing me on every creative conversation, every brainstorm, every casual idea exchange, all documented with timestamps and participant lists. Marcus created a spreadsheet tracking his bias check-in topics, color-coded by type of bias discussed, with notes on his learnings and growth areas. They were complying perfectly, but something felt off. The work itself was suffering. Creative output down, client satisfaction dropping. Projects taking longer because of all the documentation. But I couldn't criticize them for following my framework. Month 2, and things got worse. We lost another major pitch, this time to our biggest competitor. Client feedback said our team seemed disjointed, that the presentation lacked the energy and expertise we usually showed. Michael called me into his office. Victoria, we need to talk about department performance. Revenue is down 18%, client retention dropping. I started explaining about the adjustment period, how meaningful change requires temporary disruption. He cut me off. 2 months isn't temporary. We're losing money and clients. What's going on with this framework of yours? I explained the collaborative excellence framework, all the guidelines I'd implemented for equity. He listened with an increasingly concerned expression. Victoria, did any of the women on your team ask for this? The question caught me off guard. They don't have to ask. These are best practices. But did they want it? He pressed. I didn't have a good answer. That night, I called a meeting with just the women on my team. All 15 of them gathered in the conference room. I wanted honest feedback about the framework. Started by asking how they felt about the changes. Long silence, everyone looking at each other. Finally, Rachel spoke up, my art director. Victoria, I appreciate what you're trying to do. But honestly, this isn't helping. What do you mean? I asked, trying not to sound defensive. Sarah jumped in. The equal representation rule. You're putting women on pitches we're not ready for. It makes us look incompetent. but you need the opportunity to grow. Jennifer spoke up quietly. I knew I wasn't ready for that tech pitch. You put me there to hit a quota. That's more embarrassing than being left off. Another woman, Lisa from accounts, agreed. The guys are spending so much time documenting everything. They don't have time to actually mentor us. Marcus used to teach me strategy. Now he just CCs you on emails. I felt my certainty starting to crack. What about the bias check-ins? I asked. Don't those help? Rachel laughed, not kindly. Victoria, those are a joke. The guys know they can't say anything real, so they just perform introspection for 30 minutes. It's theater, not actual growth. Another woman added, James used to give me honest feedback. Now he's afraid to say anything critical, because you might interpret it as bias. So I'm getting worse at my job because no one will tell me. I sat there as my framework got dismantled by the very women. I thought I was helping. They didn't want quotas or special treatment. They wanted actual opportunities based on merit. Real mentorship, not documented conversations. Honest feedback, not performative check-ins. The meeting ended and I walked to my office in a daze. Everything I'd built was wrong. Worse than wrong, it was hurting the people I meant to help. Next morning I looked at the performance data, objectively. Client satisfaction down 25% since the framework started. Creative output down 30%. Employee satisfaction at an all-time low. Both men and women rating morale as poor. Time to admission had to face facts. Called an all-department meeting for that afternoon. Everyone filed in looking wary. I stood at the front feeling very different than 2 months ago. Started by saying I owe you all an apology. The collaborative excellence framework isn't working. More importantly, it's not what most of you wanted. I implemented solutions to problems I assumed existed, without asking if you actually needed those solutions. Effective immediately, the framework is suspended. No more mandatory check-ins, no more attribution requirements, no more quota-based team assignments. We're going back to merit-based work. The room was completely silent. Then James asked, what about the bias awareness? Are we just abandoning inclusion efforts? No, I said, but we're going to approach it differently. We'll do voluntary training, open discussions, address specific issues when they arise, not blanket policies that assume everyone's problematic. Rachel raised her hand. Victoria, can I say something? Please, I said. Thank you for listening, she said. A lot of leaders would have doubled down, admitted they were wrong, blamed us for not embracing it. You actually heard us, that matters. Other people nodded around the room. Meeting ended and people filed out looking relieved. I sat in my office afterward feeling drained. 2 months of my leadership wasted on a framework nobody wanted. Michael stopped by later that afternoon. Heard you suspended the framework, he said. Yeah, I admitted it was a failure. He sat down. Victoria, you're a good director. But you let ideology override judgment. I know, I said quietly. He continued, the team respects you for changing course. That takes courage. Most leaders can't do that. But learn from this, management is about serving your team, not imposing your vision of what they should want. Over the next month, performance started recovering. Clients noticed the difference. Energy was back. Creative work improved. Pitches felt natural again. The women on my team were thriving. Sarah led a major pitch and won it. Jennifer got assigned to projects that matched her skill level. Rachel's work was getting industry recognition, all without quotas or special frameworks. Just talent being recognized and supported. I started doing things differently. Actually asked people what they needed. Created mentorship programs that people volunteered for. Addressed specific bias when it appeared. Not through mandatory check-ins, but through real conversations. 3 months later, we'd recovered most of our lost business. 6 months later, we exceeded our previous performance. The team was stronger than before. Not because of my framework, but in spite of it. 1 year later, I'm speaking at an industry conference about leadership lessons from failure. I tell the whole story. Don't hide anything. How I implemented a framework nobody wanted. How it hurt the people I meant to help. How the women on my team rejected it. How I had to admit I was wrong. After my talk, 3 other directors approached me. Say, they almost did the same thing. Now they're going to ask their teams what they need, instead of assuming they know. That night, I'm updating my LinkedIn. Remove all the posts about the collaborative excellence framework. Write a new post instead about learning from failure. About how good intentions don't justify bad outcomes. About how listening matters more than ideology. Get hundreds of responses, mostly positive. Some people say I'm betraying feminism. That admitting the framework failed validates patriarchy. But more people, especially women, thank me for being honest about what doesn't work. For prioritizing actual outcomes over theoretical frameworks. 6 months after the conference, I get a message from a young woman who's about to become a director. She says she saw my talk, it changed her approach. She was planning to implement similar policies. Now she's going to start by listening to her team. I write back encouraging her. Tell her real leadership is about serving your people, not proving your ideology is right. Another year passes and my department is thriving. We're winning awards, retaining clients, growing revenue. The team culture is genuinely inclusive, not because of mandatory frameworks, but because we hire great people and support them. I still care about equality and women's advancement, but I approach it completely differently now. Focus on removing actual barriers, creating real opportunities, providing genuine support, not imposing solutions to problems that don't exist. Last week, one of the junior women, Jennifer, the one I put on that disastrous tech pitch, she led a major presentation and absolutely killed it. Client signed immediately, biggest contract of the quarter. She came to my office afterward, thanked me for believing in her, but also for not putting her in positions she wasn't ready for. Said she appreciated that I learned from that mistake, that I started matching people to opportunities based on readiness, not just gender quotas. I thanked her for the feedback. Told her I'm still learning, still figuring out how to lead effectively. She smiled and said, "That's what makes you a good boss. You actually listen and change." That evening, I'm reflecting on the whole journey. From confident director implementing my framework to humbled leader who learned the hard way. Everything I thought would help actually hurt. Everyone I thought needed saving rejected my help. The women I meant to empower felt patronized. The men I meant to educate felt attacked. All because I prioritized my ideology over reality. I pull out my old collaborative excellence framework document. Read through all my guidelines and requirements. They sound so right in theory, but they completely failed in practice. Delete the file, don't need it anymore. My framework now is simple. Hire talented people. Remove barriers to their success. Give honest feedback. Create real opportunities. Listen more than I speak. That's it. No elaborate systems. No mandatory check-ins or documentation requirements. Just management basics that actually work. Anyway, that's my story. About how I demanded men follow new guidelines. And regretted it when they actually did. Not because they rebelled or resisted, but because they followed my rules so perfectly that everyone could see the rules were terrible, including the women I thought I was helping. I learned that feminism isn't about frameworks. It's about creating space for talent, regardless of gender. And sometimes the most feminist thing you can do is admit you were wrong and listen to what women actually want, instead of deciding for them.